So in the second part of this video, I am going to walk you through a step-by-step process regarding how you can properly archive your legacy source code into the Software Heritage Universal Archive. To do so, I will use a guide which has been published by Software Heritage, and the link to this guide will be in the description of this video, as well as all the different materials that I will point out to. And I will use a dummy software. I won't use a real software that I will just call my software going forward. So that's the name of the dummy software I want to archive. So I'm going to start sharing my screen. So the first step to this process is to set up your local working environment. Meaning that we're going to use this GitHub template that you can now see on my screen. And we're going to create your own dedicated version of it that we're going to also duplicate locally on your computer. And the reason we want to do this is that it allows you to very easily manage your files and your documents locally without having to think about GitHub too much, in the exact same way you would do managing your files on your computer. So to do so, you first want to use this GitHub template and make your own GitHub repository. So I'm going to click on this button, create a new repository, and I'm going to name it after my software. So here, of course, you input the name of your actual software. And I'm also going to call it Workbench because this is a working environment. It won't be your final repository. It's just a place where you can mess around a bit and work privately. So I make this repository private because this is more like your own working space. So you can create the new repository, and this is being created as we speak. So now you have your own repository, which duplicates all the same folders, the same content. The first thing you can do is click on this little pen and update the README section with the actual name of your software. So here I won't do it because my software is called my software. But every time my software shows, replace this with the actual name of your software. And you can, of course, feel free to add any kind of information you think is relevant to understand what the software is about. And of course, you can always update that later as you go. So as I mentioned, we won't directly work on GitHub. We want to create a local copy of this environment. So to do so, we're going to click on this code button. And under the SSH tab, there is a sort of link. So we're going to copy it. And then moving to, okay, I'm going to create a new empty one. It's going to be a bit, a bit quicker. So in this Linux command line environment, I am going to clone this GitHub repository locally on my computer. So to do so, I'm just going to check which working directory I'm in. Yeah, that's fine. And I'm going to type git clone and then just copy paste the name of your workbench. And that's done. And that's the first step. So now I have created a local version of this working environment called Workbench on my computer. I can go and check it out here. So in my case, I'm working on this Linux virtual environment. So it has been created in here, home, home, in my own repo. And here you can see that my software Workbench has been created, and that it has all the same folders than the distant repository on GitHub. So now the first phase, the first step is to upload all your initial materials in the raw material folder. So this is, of course, your initial source code material. So for example, if you have a scanned version of your listing or a compressed file or whatever you received. But if you also have, for example, some documentation explaining where you got this source code from, that is also relevant to upload here. So for example, if you receive this code from the historical author of the software, via email, maybe you want to also upload the email, of course, if the author is okay with it. So in my case, I have 2 documents. The first one is this scanned version of my source code. Yeah, and a zip version of a later version of it, which was already in a machine readable format. So I'm gonna copy paste those 2 initial material into the raw material environment, which I had already done. So that's it. The second step now is to come back to your workbench and to upload the machine readable version of it into the source code folder. So in my case, it means for the first version of it to transcribe it to a machine readable format. So that I already done before. So I can show you what it looks like. Here, I just transcribed the code into a doc document, and I unzipped the folder of the second version, and it's also a doc document. In my case, I don't have a specific language associated with it, but for example, if your software has been written in Fortran or Python or whatever, make sure you update the extension of your file so that it matches the programming language that is relevant to you. So I'm going to copy those two files and paste it into the source code folder. And for the sake of doing it, it can be a good practice to organize it into clear subfolders, especially, so in this very simple example, I have only one file per version of my software, but of course, sometimes you have many different files for one version. So if that's the case, we do encourage you to organize your documents. Okay. And to organize your files into subfolders. Once you've done this, you can come back one step and go into the metadata folder. And here you have different elements, and we recommend to try and fill it in as much as possible. So the first one is the catalog, and the catalog is just a way of referencing the different elements you uploaded into the raw material, like your initial elements. So we recommend to fill in different elements. So for example, I will just do it for my first one. I will call it listing from 1971. And I will change the name. I think the name was like this, if I'm not mistaken. Then origin, I got it from the author personal archives, warehouse. That's the same. The original is stored at the author's place. The author, I will name him or her. The author here. The dates I know is roughly May 71. I'm not sure about the exact dates. The collector is myself. And I can add a description and note and add the author's personal house. And I can do this for every document, and I save it. So that's the first one. The second one I'm going to look at is the license. So if you are aware of the type of license that goes with your software, we do recommend to fill it in. Of course, if it's a private license that you don't own, you are of course not allowed to publish it and to archive it. But if it's, for example, your own code, then you can specify whichever license you want to use. In my case, there is no predefined license attached to it, but I know that the author is okay for archiving and for and any use for academic purpose or educational purpose. So I can write just that. Use only for archiving, academic and educational purpose. And I just Control S to save, and it's done. And the version history.csv is a way to register all the data that you have for each version of your software. And more specifically, this file will be useful later on in the process. If you have many different versions of your software and you want to automate the reconstruction of the development history of your software, then this file will be used. So if you have many different versions, I do recommend to fill in this file quite precisely. So here, that's the directory in which I stored my 2 versions. Author name, I think I called the author. The author, if I have the yes, if I have the email of the author, I can add it. If I have the dates, I had it as well. So the first one is May 71. The second one is around 72, but I don't have a month, so I will just input January. The curation name, it can be me. Then my email address, mattfitchen@myaddress.com. Same one here. The release tag. So if your software has an official release version number, you can use it. In my case, I will just use 1 and 2. And then a commit message. So later on, we will commit the successive version of your software, and you may want to add a message. So first release of my software, second release of my software. So I save. And that's it. And the last file you see here is codemeta.json. So this file is a bit specific. It's a JSON format, so it's not really meant for human to read per se. But later on, when your code has been archived in the archive, it's a way for any search engine to easily search for your code and identify some data linked to it. So if we do recommend to update this file as well, but you see it's not very user-friendly to update like this. So there is this website called CodeMeta Generator here. So in which you can enter all your software data. So I won't fill the whole of it, but I will make a very simple version. So you have many different information. For example, I will add one author, name my and family name author, etc. And yeah, that's it. So once you are done with filling in the code meta data that you have, it will generate here a small JSON snippet, so you can copy it and then go back into your workbench. And in the metadata, you can just overwrite the template and just pasting your own code metadata, and you save it, Control S. And yeah, that's the big first step that you made, uploading everything. Now what we want to do is that to make sure that what you've just added locally is synchronized with the repository, the GitHub repository online. So to do so, we're gonna use the following command lines. So git add raw materials. What did I do? Raw materials. Oh, I first need to move, sorry. So I need to navigate into my workbench. Then I can git add the raw materials, git commit using a small message. Okay, and then git push. Yeah, that works. We are gonna redo it for the source code. And git push. And then the last one, git add metadata. Git commit. And then git push. And now we can check in our distant repository. So if I just refresh it and I go, for example, to raw materials, that's my documents here. So that's all good. And that's the first big step. Now that we have uploaded all the initial documents and materials into our workbench, we are ready to start reconstructing the development history of our software. So on the right side, you can see the guide that we edited, and in which I can find all the command lines that I will be using. And on the left, my Linux command line editor. So I'm just gonna make sure I am still in the workbench, my software workbench. And from here, the first step is to create a new branch, which we will call source code. And you can see this branch is an orphan branch, and it means it's like a totally detached branch in the sense that it doesn't have any commit history. So we won't see all the commits we've been doing before in this branch. And then we want to erase all the previous material that we've been uploading here to create really like an empty space. And that's what we've just done. So if we want to check quickly that it went well, so now if we go to our workbench, it's completely empty, okay? So that's good, that's what we want. And from there, we're going to copy paste the first version of our software source code into the new branch. So that's what these 3 command lines are going to do. Sometimes the dash, I don't know why, from copy pasting that doesn't go well, but if you just retype it from your keyboard, it should go. So now if I refresh, there it is, the first version of my software. Now that's where the important part comes in. If we would just commit our source codes now, it will use all the default commit data, meaning you would appear as the committer, but also as the author of this source code. And the date would be today's date and not the historical one. So we want to manually change the metadata linked to the commit. We're going to use this template here in the guide. So I am the committer because I'm the one performing the commit. That's okay. But then the author and the author dates are the historical one. So here it's 71 for me. Then the author name, I think we called it previously the author. Oops, somehow an E missing. Okay. Then the email. If you don't have the email address, you can leave it empty. That's fine. And then you can do add and then commit. And now we want to add what we call in Git a tag. It's like a label saying, yeah, this is the official first version. Here it is. And then we want to push no, sorry, and that's it for the first version. So now, after the first version is done, if that's the only one, then good, we can keep moving in the rest of the process. But if we have several versions again, several versions to push, then we need to restart the process I just did with the second version. So to do so, we clean the repository again. So using the same command lines. And we start all over again, but using the second version of the source code. So I'm going to do it quickly. And then we change the commit message to show v2. And we add a tag, also changing v2. And that's essentially it. So now we have reconstructed the history of the development of my source code. The last thing we want to do is to push this new branch into the remote repository. And that's what this command line is going to do. So we can check now in our GitHub repository. That's it. This went well. So now in the source code, I should see the two version. Sorry, the last version of my software here. And if I want to check in the history, you can see that we can see that the author authored and I committed. So the metadata are now correct. And that's nearly it. So I am now going to show you the last couple of steps. Before I do so, just one side note that all this process of updating manually the commit metadata can also be done in an automated way using a small script which was developed by the University of Pisa. You will find it in the guide, and it is specifically useful if you have many different software versions. And in that case, this small script will use the data that you entered in the metadata folder in the version history.csv file to use the correct metadata. Okay, that being said, now we are nearly done with working in the workbench, and we can now create the final repository, which will be a public one, in which we're going to share all the work we just did. So to do so, I can go to GitHub. And so I go back to the main page, and here on the plus sign, I can create a new repository. Here I can just name it after my software. And I make it public because this one is the one which is going to be harvested by the Software Heritage acquisition process. Here I go. Yes. That's good. And so now we're going to copy this link, which refers to my new repository. And I'm going to use the command line that you can find here in the guide to basically transfer everything we've been doing in the workbench within this final repository. So I'm just going to reuse this git push tags, and then I paste the name of my new repository, and then I explain that I want each branch to be pushed to the equivalent branch, and yes, I did mean tags. So I have a small typo that I need to correct. And now it should work. So if I go and check my new repository, yes, so I have two branches in the source code branch. I just see the last version of my software. And if I go in the master, I will see all my uploaded materials. So that's nearly it. Now, what I'm gonna do is update a little bit this section here to add some topics. So we can use the ones suggested in the guides, such as software heritage, legacy code, archive, and SWHAP. And this will make my repository more easy to be identified within different searches. The last step we're going to do now, is the final step actually, is to trigger the software heritage acquisition process. So to do so, we go to the Save Code Now page, and we enter the URL of our final repository into this section here. No, sorry, here. And we submit it. And so we should wait a little bit, but as soon as it is done, if I search for it here, so now we can't find it yet, but if I wait like 2 or 3 minutes, it will appear here. So I think it should be good now. Just a quick correction in that if you want to save your page, you only want to include the root, not the tree master part. But normally now, that's the link I tried to save. And now I can find the archived, the forever archived source code. As a last little enhancement, what you can do is here, click on the permalink button. And if you click on the badges here, it will show you some code snippets and typically a markdown one, which you can copy paste into your final repository so that you can proudly state that it has been saved in the Software Heritage Archive. And that's it. You've successfully archived your software into the Software Heritage Archive.